Good evening and welcome to the February 16th meeting of the Board of Selectmen. If everybody would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Any announcements from the board? Any announcements, period? Appointments. There's Mr. Tom Ursa, Town Planner, up at 6, so take it away, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, board members, and Town Administrator, and the public, and Cindy. Well, tonight is sort of a follow-up from our last meeting where we started to talk about the formation, the hopeful formation of a comprehensive plan oversight committee. I'm not sure what exact title you wanted to give to it, but where we trailed off at the last meeting was an assignment from the board to come up with sort of a skeleton format of how the committee might form, what some of its responsibilities might be, most importantly what the time commitment is, and additionally some benchmarks and timetables. So I took a hypothetical here, and if you look on the handout that I've given you, with a hopeful start-up of March 2nd, looking at approximately 7 to 8 weeks of recruitment and then ultimate selection of the Board of Selectmen of a committee. I think it'll take at least a month to 2 months to find the right type of leadership. And I think this is going to be so much about leadership and commitment because it's a long process to be able to really ramp up a whole brand new comprehensive plan. And from my own perspective, from my own opinion on this, it's not going to be about taking the old and cut and paste and attempting to come up with a document that's workable for the town of Waterboro. It's really going to be almost starting from scratch. Some of the goals will apply from the past, but there'll be as many, if not more, new goals that will apply given the economic times and what the perspective is for the future. Typically, these new comprehensive plans want to look out 8 to 10 years. I think anything beyond that is kind of foolish planning because just there's too many changes that occur. And I'm jumping to benchmarks and timelines. If a comprehensive plan committee, if this is the wish of the town and the wish of the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator, if one can be formed with the right type of leadership on or before the end of April, then we can follow this sort of outline process of different times. I would immediately then, at your wish, call that committee to action so that we can start formulating who's on board, what we need to do, with the intent of completing it between 18 to 24 months. And I think that it's a near impossible task in less than 18 months. What I've done is sort of back it out of the June 2012 town meeting as a delivery date, if you will, for town approval, town acceptance of it, and then with an absolute delivery timeline of March 2012 to the Board of Selectmen. The core responsibilities are something that you'll establish as to who you want to see on here on this particular oversight committee. But if I may point out a couple things that I think are critical to the leadership in this committee, they need to be visionary. They need to be people that can make a time commitment and not miss more than 1 or 2 meetings a year. They need to be able to commit to 15 to 20 meetings per year for at least, well, for almost 2 years, because there needs to be continuity. Anything less than that should be unacceptable because the continuity is really critical. There'll be in the upfront part of this a series of visioning sessions. Those visioning sessions are really critical because it gives the community at large an opportunity to tell us what their visions and perspectives are. And then at that point there'd be a delivery back to, and I keep talking about product delivery, back to the Board of Selectmen as to what the outcomes of these visioning sessions were. And that becomes the basis of forming the elements of the comprehensive plan. One huge question that will come out in the visioning sessions and from our town administrator and the Board of Selectmen is if this is going to be a needs-based comprehensive plan or if this is going to be a comprehensive plan that's based on the assets of the community. Quite simply put, and it's much more complicated than I'm going to give you in this simplistic overview, is that asset-based is local initiative-based. It's what the community wants. Frequently, needs-based comprehensive plans are done to satisfy the needs of the state of Maine. That's a huge decision that has to be made. And it can't be really a combination of both because in many cases they're contradictory. So that's something that I'm sure will cause some lively discussion. In here I've also put something from a planning perspective that's really critical. And that's to, if we go through these core responsibilities that purely are suggestions to the board, is to understand the potential and the creation of village centers. Our last comprehensive plan mentioned it in a couple sentences, but had no action plans. This is the most critical point in our future, is that we need to determine where these villages will be created, and there's no doubt that they will be. In the absence of any type of village planning, Waterboro will end up with what every other community has here in northern New England and perhaps throughout the United States. Linear planning, strip mall planning, planning that just develops along the corridor. So you'll see Route 5 and Route 202, in the absence of village planning, turn into linear planning. And that's something that in this time that we'd want to discourage. We'd want to build our village cores, and then the linear planning will happen on its own after you establish some village plans. Under accountability, which I thought was a really important aspect of the formation of this committee, the Board of Selectmen should assign to this committee some prescribed report back sessions. Because this is such a complex study, it'd be important to have a series of report backs, very much like you have on your committee report backs currently. But this particular committee, there will be so much activity going on and a lot of concurrent activity going on, it's important to pre-establish when those report backs are. So I hope that this is a bit helpful in sort of the startup. I had promised you a little sort of a skeleton format, and I've discovered more and more that I'm trying to compress these all onto one page versus give a very lengthy report. Creativity is an absolute criterion. It's important to have creative people that represent the leadership of the community, represent different business aspects, and for a committee to be, I would suggest, at least 9 to 10 people, because there's that much work to be done. So I'll leave it on that note. I know I've thrown you a lot of different ideas, but I'm open to any questions that you might have, or suggestions, or next steps that you would like me to work on.
How many folks would you suggest that, and I know that this has been all over the place when we did it 20 years ago, it was a core group of folks, but we also had hired an organization to do the work, and I think Tad Redaway did it for Sebago Techniques, so whomever, they're the ones that, I think Dwayne Moran was in your position then, and that's kind of how it all got crunched out, even though there was some committee involvement. But as we move, I guess, forward is that, you know, this isn't going to be done by 3 people, but I'm not sure that you need 30 either.
For internally, for resident participation, I would think 9 to a dozen would be a workable size. But those 9 to 12 people need to make the commitment. If they show up twice or 3 times a year, that's not good enough. So it has to be a real deep commitment that people will participate. For external consultants, the answer to that question is after we flush out how much can be done internally. For example, the village planning component, I'm suggesting a whole separate element that deals with village centers, of which there'd be an action plan, of which there would be a lot of diagrammatics and graphics. That's a task that I feel that we can handle internally with the support of some academia. I fortunately have a couple good contacts in graduate schools that are nationally recognized in the participation of municipal type of activities like this, in master planning activities. Graduate schools can't take on the task of doing a whole master plan, but if we take one element, and the element that deals with hopefully support for Village Center, I have some relationships with a couple graduate schools in Massachusetts that I think, with enough lead time, would help and participate. There would be a small fee that would be attached to that, and I can give that fee to you at the appropriate time if village planning is in fact a component of the comprehensive plan. To answer your question about other external consultants, they'll be necessary. In the absence of having a full-fledged GIS system, some of those technicalities and putting together map work, which is integral to a good comprehensive plan, it's likely we'd have to farm that out at this point in time. But I can't, Mr. Chairman, I can't tell you the exact percentages.
Yeah, no, I understand, but
at
just
this
a
point in time.
ballpark. Either one?
Tom and I have talked quite extensively about the comprehensive plan already over the past several months. Part of it having to do because of the Economic Development Committee and whatnot. And I think probably one of the most important things that we need to do to start this, that I think is missing from that, is the Selectmen need to be familiar with our current comprehensive plan and have a copy of it and make sure that we're familiar with it.
Absolutely. The most recent is the 2003 update, and just by a show of hands, if anyone doesn't have...
Cover to cover.
Pardon me?
I read it cover to cover. No.
So the chairman can be a
Ask me a
tutor
question,
if you
Mark.
wish.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you, I know that the last time people complained and the whole thing came to it being subjective, and you had people calling one side tree huggers, and then you had the other people, the business, well, you had your business people and you had your tree huggers. How do you make it so that people get along in the process and not have it be a subjective process?
Well, Cindy, there's a couple of ways of doing that. One is you can delegate that responsibility to your town planner and have him be the referee, if you wish, or the word I prefer is consensus builder. Not everybody's going to agree on everything. It's just the nature of packaging these. I'm sure there'll be some lively debates on specific things. Let's take Village Center, for example. Some people may say it should be in South Waterboro. Some people should say it be in East Waterboro. Some might say it should be up in North Waterboro. And so there'll have to be some consensus established, because it's obviously not going to be village centers all happening all at once. There'll have to be probably one defined area. So to answer your question, how do you resolve that? Part of this will be conflict resolution. Not everybody will agree, nor should they. I think that's what lends to a good comprehensive plan, is that you have good debate and ultimately arrive at good consensus. Does that kind of answer your question? Well, just hopefully your town planner doesn't come out of it with too many bruises.
I know.
With thick skin.
Alaska or Canada.
That was one of the criteria when we hired him, was thick skin. Gordon?
Tom, excuse me, I've got two questions for you. If you can clear up just a misunderstanding that perhaps I have with what you said. Tonight, I kind of got the gist that you said we got to go back to square one. And then in a previous meeting we had, if I'm not mistaken, you said that we don't have to throw out the entire comprehensive plan. We can build on it. So I guess maybe I'd just like a little bit of clarification on that, whether we're going to use that as the framework or we're just going to dump it and start fresh.
Okay. I'm sorry, I made that a little confusing. On the 2003 comprehensive plan, it's more of an update than it is a comprehensive plan. And so the parts of it that we can use that remain fairly consistent are the goals. If we look at those goals, they're recyclable. I think what we need to do is to take those goals and kind of bring them forward and make them fresh in terms of this current decade. So those are the pieces that we can use. We can't use old census tract data. The discussion about transportation planning was superficial at best. It addressed the issues of what our arterials are. It's obviously 202 and 5. The goals were, how shall I say it, a little bit marshmallowy. You couldn't really put your arms around them. And so what we need to do now is to build a little bit more substance to it, expand those goals, and bring them forward in time. So yes, we can use pieces of it. I think the goals are recyclable. Your update was very goal-centered. Your new comprehensive plan, if you choose to pursue a new one, should be not only goal-centered, but it should be action-packed. And so what the hope is to create a plan that is a lot more graphic definitive, is more definitive on how you get from point A, or how you hit a home run. I think if we could draw at a metaphor, we use a baseball metaphor, the update of the 203 got us to first base, but there were no home runs. And the new comprehensive plan, if we were to use that metaphor, is how do we define more home runs?
Without steroids.
That will lead probably into my next question is why, if we are a state trying to promote people who are educated here into staying in Maine, to develop that it becomes necessary for us to go out of state to try to find consultants on this plan when we have the Muskie Center here in Maine and the University of Maine. Wouldn't it be nice to sort of integrate our local school systems in rather than going to Massachusetts or New Hampshire or Rhode Island? Isn't there expertise in this state that we can draw from?
There is. And the Muskie School can offer some substantive help. And the only reason that I suggested two schools in Massachusetts is because I have strong relationships with them. And so I might as well mention to you what those schools are. The Graduate School of Design at Harvard is an incredible school, and it has resources that are unavailable here in the state of Maine. The Conway School, the Graduate School of Landscape Architecture and Planning, which is frequently called the Conway School in Western Massachusetts, is also very resource-rich and computer-rich and graphic-rich. One of the things that are absent in a lot of today's comprehensive plans is the lack of graphics or graphics that are all computer-generated. And I think, sadly, people are losing touch with using this and bringing it to here. And so one of the beauties of if they were available, the Conway School of which I have a relationship with from past municipal projects. I've used them on 2 past municipal projects, and they've delivered a phenomenal product, typically at about $7,500, producing a product worthy if a consultant were to do it, value of about $40,000 to $50,000. It's because that's the way they holistically train their graduate students in landscape architecture and planning. Now, if we flip and compare the Conway School to Harvard University and those 2 schools to the Muskie School, the Muskie School can indeed provide some assistance. They're not as enriched with the capabilities to do graphics and plan work. And I see a plan that is all verbalized in the absence of having any graphics, sometimes not translatable to everybody who reads it. They see a lot of narrative, but they can't quite translate it into the visuals. So I think the visualization component needs to be as rich as the narrative thought. Now, having said all that, we could make our priority to check with our local schools here in the state of Maine first and see what they could offer and at what cost, and translate that to what others could do by comparison, and then make that decision. I guess what I'm trying to see here is a richness in the study that goes beyond just goal creation and the ability to use academia to its fullest, specialized academia, and to be able to use also private sector partnerships to its fullest. And if I find that when you triangulate public sector, private sector, and academia, and really think it through, you can come out with a pretty good product at a very reasonable dollar.
Yeah, I think as we move forward, that's all a matter of, what is available and what are the resources, and tap into those. Questions? Frank, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess I'd ask Tom, in the original go-around, we had a lot of polls, a lot of input from townspeople, and probably one of the reasons that some of the goals and some of the structure was a little wishy-washy or marshmallow, you say. But it was because you had to get it past the vote. And we weren't held to it back then. We could pass a comprehensive plan, and it may reflect some people in town, but, the day after it was passed, it was, you looked at it or not. Nobody's really read it lately. It's not a big item. If you go up and read, was it 208, I guess, up in the state now, regardless of which way you go, whether it's asset-based or not, our comprehensive plan this time around will commit us to a lot of stuff. We won't be able to, it will commit us planning, it will commit us zoning, it will commit us grant-wise. There's a lot of things we think we will have to follow. And that wasn't the case for the other comprehensive plan.
Well, the original one, let me just jump in here, because it was around when that one first got done. I mean, that was a mandate by the state. It was really funded through the state planning office, right? And we had whatever cost it was for Sebago to do the work, right? But to Frank's point, when all was said and done, it was put in a nice brochure, and of volumes, and it was put on the shelf, and there it rests today.
Yeah.
But the fact, because no one, whether, I'm not trying to take shots at anybody, but the planning board didn't move on recommendations within that plan, because the perception is that this was something that was put together by a consultant, right? It had a lot of input from the community, but I'm not sure it was owned by the community. And that's the risk that I see going forward here, is that we develop a plan that, might look good, feel good, and have all of those things on it, right? But if we don't move forward with some actions out of it, then why bother to go through the effort to begin with?
I guess the concern was, in some cases, we're going to be forced to follow some of the things, which we would never want to
If in fact it complies with state law, right?
Yeah.
Jack, did you have your hand up, or you just scratching?
Just resting my head.
if I can respond to that, because both the chairman and Frank brought up good points. Let's take the ownership portion of it. We need to improve on that. And Waterboro is not an exception to the rule. Nearly all municipalities run into that ownership issue. So perhaps part of this, and this is why I suggest a triangulation of private sector, public sector partnerships. If you build the partnerships, you build the ownership. If we've got business people that are saying, wow, it is now time to invest in village planning because it's now time we step up to the plate and create a real, descript village center and create it as a model. I think you've got investment there, Frank. And I think then you can move this forward and people can say, huh, this is a village plan, it's on paper, how do we bring it to the next step? If the private sector has stepped up, particularly if it's stepped up with financial investment in the plan, then they're going to want to see it move forward. Okay, so we take that component, and I keep going back to this village planning because I think that's the one that we can make happen the soonest. Okay, there are other dry parts of the comprehensive plan. I'm sorry for any census takers out there, but you know that's a pretty dry portion. It's population is population. Those are stats, and that's that. They may be helpful in future grantsmanship if the numbers fall out correctly. So I think.
You're putting detail to the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, we bring it to another level of detail and we involve the private sector so they have a stake in it financially, business-wise, community-wise. We develop a sense of community pride as a result of doing that. I think, you know, pride's a component to make anything happen, you know? Community's got to be proud of itself and say, wow, after all these years of existence and after the fire, it's time to recreate what we lost in the fire, and let's recreate a village, or 2, or 3, or as the old plan said, 5. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think 5 village centers are realistic in anybody's lifetime in this room. Even though there's some young people in this room. You know, I don't think you'll see 5 new village centers. But if you see 2 that are done right, it'll be the impetus to develop other sectors of town that have village centers. You know, we all grew up, or at least we've traveled by village greens. Chairman of the Economic Development Committee, who's a fairly well-traveled guy, who travels out to
Get out to Alfred every now and again.
to Woodstock now and then, and he was harping on, you know, his trips to Woodstock. Well, you know what makes Woodstock quite beautiful is it's village green, and you know every town should have one. And can we have a village green? Of course we can, if it's part of a village center design, and if everything is thoughtfully laid out in a plan, it gives the impetus to do these things. And although there was a lot of hard work invested, and we've got some, you know, I think Jack, for one, was on the last update. I think that group worked hard, and they created an update within the confines of what the public wanted and what the public would accept. Now I think we need to be a bit more courageous, move forward, and plan for the future. I think that if we don't, if we were to write a little thing and put it in a time capsule, 10 years from now, you're going to see more taco stands. You're going to see more Taco Bells. There'll be a whole new surge of franchises that come through, and they typically fit into linear development. And so now's the time to be progressive and to think ahead. And that's why I'm pretty pumped up over working for the community to do a comprehensive plan that will look nothing like the comprehensive plans of the future. Will look nothing like the comprehensive plans of the past. It's not something that should be cut and pasted or borrowed from other municipalities. Oh, I like this, I like that, and then you end up with a patchwork quilt. It's my hope that the legacy of this community and the people who believe in this community work hard to create a comprehensive plan to the likes of nothing else that exists in the state. I realize we're a small town. We don't have the financial capacities that Portland has. But here's a good illustration, if I may. Some of you probably noticed in the newspaper in the last week that even the city of Portland's resources, pardon me, the city of Portland's resources financially to do some of the updates in their plan, they dug into their right hip pocket, found it a little bit empty, and said, well, what do we do? What they did is the very same thing that I'm suggesting to the board tonight. They're soliciting the support of MIT to come up and help them do a critical component in their planning. They have a huge planning staff. They have, I think, lots more money than we have, but yet they recognize that they're having to tap MIT to help them in their planning. And I can't even guess, maybe they got about 18 on the planning staff in Portland, but yet MIT is being involved to help them do a component of their future planning. So,
The key here will be that it will be balanced, right? I mean, I think that if, to Cindy's point, you're going to get those that want to see further development, those that want to see no development, and somewhere there's a consensus, right?
right.
That meets in the middle. And I think if that's balanced, then in the real drive, I think, is that we take this and move forward with something that says, the actions that this is what we're going to do, because it didn't happen in 1990, and the state threw a whole bunch of money at it, and I would be willing to bet that out of all of the communities that were funded through grants, that very few, if any, actually executed anything that was in those plans. It was something that was a feel-good moment. There was a lot of money thrown at it, and it was done. And most of that money went to consultants and in different organizations. So, and then the update that was done, I think, in 2003 here was, again, it was, okay, well, we got to update it, we got to change some of the goals and objectives, but again, I'm not sure that took us to where we needed to go, because there's no actions out of that said, okay, this is going to happen by, I mean, there has to be a product that drives the municipality to go do something. If we don't, then there's no sense of wasting the time and effort and money to do it.
Absolutely.
We'll be back here in another 8 or 10 years saying, gee, we ought to do something with a comprehensive plan. But I don't think we should do it just for the sake of somebody saying, geez, this would be a good time to go do it, okay? We should do it based on the fact that we're probably in an opportune time to look at where this municipality will go when this rebound happens, because it's going to happen. And I think we're on the cusp of that, although I don't see that that's happening in the next 12 months or even 18 months. So we have an opportunity to put some real thought into this of what happens when the next wave hits.
You're absolutely right, Dennis. The interesting thing is that the timelines that we're talking about here run a parallel track with when the anticipated recovery is coming. It certainly isn't going to be this year, but there'll be small signs of recovery in 2011, and I believe huge signs in 2012. And so these would be running parallel tracks as to when we expect to see that next economic rebound happening. There's tire kickers out there now looking to buy cheap land and cheap real estate. There are still Portland developers that are scouting in this town with the hopes of buying, for a quarter on the dollar. So now's our time to do our pre-planning and prep ourselves for the anticipation. And I think if the forecasts are right, the end part of 2011 and the front part of 2012, we're going to be seeing another growth surge.
All right.
So,
Any other questions from the board? Thank you. I think we need to really kind of maybe bring this to fruition in an agenda item and say what are we going to move to do the next steps.
We have, next week is a workshop for us. It might be a great time to sit down and really talk about it.
Yep. All right.
Okay,
Thanks, Tom.
thank you. Ready when you are. Thanks.
Okay. All right, hearing a delegation. Correspondence, reports, town administrators report.
Just have a couple of things here. Received the quote on the door openers for the door out here from Adapted Home Business, and also for making the ramp, the wooden ramp on the other side of the building, ADA compliant. I didn't
It was
email.
cheap, I remember.
Yeah, it was very cheap.
What, the steps or the door?
And also, we got the report from Alpha One on their proposal. The report that we got from MMA, from our risk management services, when they came down, the action plan that they left for us to complete, there's only, I think, one more thing at the library that's got to be done, and that whole action plan's completed. And I gave you a copy of the one from Safety Works. Matt and I had a discussion this afternoon, and he's going to get a hold of the person that did the inspection. We was under the assumption that there was going to be more detail than what was sent, but we have to assume that this is it. Some of it is just going to be, like they call it, housekeeping. I think our biggest expense is we got to have the fire alarm in this room moved. We didn't like it because it goes behind the behind the screen when it's down, so we have to move it.
We could have one that comes down with a machine.
Yeah, we could do that.
Why don't you move the screen?
Well, that's wired too, so either one's got to be.
You turn it around, put it over there. Dave's smiling.
I think that's going to be, the rest of it is,
We could cut a hole in the screen so when it comes down, you can see it.
All right. We'll decide by committee where that thing's going. It'll take us a couple of years.
Wires on that fire alarm.
Yeah, I know.
That's why I was wondering what the big issue was.
Probably ought to go under the safety lights over there, right? Anything else, Nancy?
no, that is it.
Selectmen's report.
I have some stuff.
Okay.
Last night, we had a meeting of the 12-town group, and one of the discussions was sending a letter to the 186 legislators regarding the current state of cuts that are being proposed that will be passed on to municipalities and education cuts. And John Sylvester put together a letter. I've given you all a copy of that tonight. And what they're going to be looking for is the selectmen and councilors in all of the towns that are represented by the 12-town group to sign the document, and then they will forward it along. The letter is quite blunt in how municipalities like ours are going to be impacted by the $250 million in cuts that are being proposed. It's actually just a shift of money from the state passing it along to the local communities who are going to be forced to raise property taxes to make up for the cuts that are coming down from the state. So while the governor is saying no new taxes, they're just meaning that at a state level, and it's putting the burden on us to increase the property taxes. So the letter addresses that, and it also made two recommendations. The first being to increase the state sales tax by 1% for 2 years. That would bring in a revenue of approximately $130 million. And while the group, as we discussed it, you recognize that that's not going to solve all of the state's woes, it is something that's there to help mitigate some of that. The other proposal in this document is an increase to the fuel tax by 5 cents. In the upcoming fiscal year, there will be no paving projects. There's no money in the state to pave any of the 8,000 miles of road that the state owns. We started rattling off roads in our communities last night that needed attention, and the state skipping an entire year of paving is going to have a detrimental effect, and adding just 5 cents for 18 months will help to bring the state to a level where maybe they can plan a bit more in the future and look at paving projects in the future, but do some maintenance in the meantime. So depending on how the board feels, this was just a draft, there was a few recommendations. John Sylvester will take those, put it together in a more formalized form, and then they would like to get all the municipalities to sign it. The other thing that was discussed was a bill that went before the legislature last week for hearing, and it had to do with the revenues that are received by the jail. Now, looking to take some of that money and put it back into the county government. County is doing payroll, et cetera, for the jail, so there are some expenses that are being incurred by the county for the jail. So the bill is proposing that some monies from the jail could go into the county to help absorb some of those costs. Another recommendation that was also made at that hearing was if they weren't going to allow some of that money to come into, flow into into county government, at least take some of it and allow it to go towards the debt service for the new jail, and do a sunset clause of about 5 years over it. The county budget is going to be voted on. There's a public hearing that's going to be on February 24th at 7 p.m. And I think we already talked about that last week. It was a 6.5%, 6.2% increase in the overall budget. That brings back approximately 17 employees to county government that were laid off, so it would definitely restore some of the services that municipalities are missing out coming out of county government. Talked about how whether you're a small municipality or a large municipality had different interest in the budget, but when it all comes together, it ends up that everybody gets a little something out of this. So that was about it for the 12-town group meeting. And then I just wanted to mention to the board that on this Thursday, Brian Doyle from the State of Maine Department of Economic and Community Development will be here as a guest speaker for the EDC's meeting at 4 o'clock, and he's bringing with him Phil Savino from the Maine Department of Tourism. The Economic Development Committee does have a subcommittee that's going to be working with state agencies on presentations, potential grants, whatnot, and that committee worked to compile a list of resources that are within the community that we see as potentially being an attraction to visitors. And we've put together a list of questions that have been forwarded both to Brian and Phil. So the conversation is more going to flow from the questions that they've already been provided, but it was quite extensive when we came up with the final document, so I think this is going to be just the first of many conversations.
Okay. Comments, questions? Gordon?
I think there's a parallel letter being formed by the 6-town R.S.U. 57 committee, essentially outlining some of the same things. And I know that one has been submitted locally. There's a draft that we have to go over that sends that message as well. And I think that all these entities just reinforce one another and should send a strong message up to Augusta that we're not particularly pleased with how he's doing.
Okay. The R.S.U. thing, I think, is probably the more significant immediate impact, right?
Regarding the
It's,
school
the
education.
bottom line is that, I'm trying to remember who said it, it was the business guy. Is it Bill?
Brooke.
Brooke, whatever. the governor has put it in our hands on whether to devastate schools or not, so I suppose that's one way to,
Yeah, it was
Say.
balancing the budget on the backs of the students.
yeah. Joe?
Just with respect to that, Representative Ed Finch has a bill that was supposed to come up for a hearing tomorrow. It's 551. It requires a examination of EPS and how it's computed. I asked him if he was agreeable to me making a presentation on that. The complexity of the formula itself has something to be desired. The dated information that they use in terms of labor market areas needs to be revised. We're still placed in the Sanford area where the OMB 2006 revised map for the state places us in the Biddeford, South Portland, and Greater Portland area. And that would make a big difference in terms of what the state would be providing R.S.U. 57.
Yeah.
So that has been rescheduled for next week. I will make a presentation on that. 1745 is the bill, Lieutenant Joe, that you're mentioning about the county jail. That comes up for work session on the 24th, and I'll be there for that.
Great.
I read through the 12-town letter and information about excise taxes, property values, 7 years of reductions in revenue sharing will have an impact. The two suggestions, and, well, a 1 cent increase on sales tax would have to pass by, I think, a 2/3 margin right off the bat to overlook now, so that would have some possibility of veto override. And as for a 5 cent increase on a gallon of gas, we couldn't get 1 cent through at the end of the last session. And that was the one time that I saw things contentious within the chamber at the very end of our session in June. That is not to say that these are non-starters, by no means. But it would take a significant amount of movement on a significant amount of people for this to go forward. But as we're getting closer and closer to the self-imposed deadline of March 1 to have something together, I think people will start moving in directions where they may not have moved before.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Committee reports. Kind of slid an extra one into tonight's meeting. So we've got the Library Board of Trustees, and I'm not sure who's speaking for. Bridget, you want to give us an update of where the trustees and what's happening, and we'll move to the EDC.
Hi, I'm Bridget McCallum, current chair of the Library Trustees. And we are looking at our role. We have been doing research through a listserv called MeLib's, Maine Library System, and asking what the role of trustees is in communities where the library is a town department. Because there are many different arrangements that municipalities and libraries have. And so we thought we would find out what others had to say. Because we've gone through many changes since I became a trustee in 2002. At that time, I took over from Pam LaRue, who just left the room.
She just ran away.
I was hoping she could...
What's your backup?
Pam, I'm calling on you. Pam was my predecessor, and I took over with the understanding that I was part of we were doing town council at that point. Were the trustees formed when the libraries first started, or did that come along later? Do you know? It was in effect long before I was the president,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
I think it goes back to the days
86 or 87 when the Lions Club
when the Lioness
brought
at
it,
the
Lioness,
time
yes, brought it over.
had the first library, which was
At
up
the medical
right.
center,
And then,
correct, the old high school.
And I think that they had a library board of trustees as an offshoot of the Lioness Club.
That sounds right, because I know I've talked with Betty and John Champion in the past, trying to build a history before we lost it. And at that time, when I became a trustee. Paul LaRue was treasurer of the library trustees, and Pam was president. And Pam, to my knowledge, represented the library to the selectmen. We had already become a town department at that time, but we were a very independent entity because we'd had a 15-year history. And we had, as I recall, 3 checking accounts and a fund that was Debbie Downs on the Downs sort of endowed fund for classic books. So it took a few years. The reason that I want to say all of this is because the metaphor, well, the library's part of the town, but they've kind of come kicking and screaming. And I don't think that's a fair assessment of the history. We've always been separate and away from the town because our staff is small, they're working part-time, and they do not have the luxury of stopping by town hall all the time. So they're not a part of the town the way that the transfer station manager, the fire chief, Parks and Rec is right here in the building. There's an ongoing day-to-day, repartee, communication system that the library never plugged into. So a lot of times we didn't have information when change was desired to be able to comply with it. One time, I will say, kicking and screaming happened when a representative of the tech, someone volunteering to look at the tech system in town, came to us, who had a 15-year-old, highly developed website, and said we should come to the town hall website. And I just, no way. Ours is 100 times more complex and developed. So now it's different. We'll link with the town, we'll work, however it works out, so long as we have our catalog system. And we are a really technologically advanced library for a town this size. So we were suddenly told we should get rid of we should not be writing checks, we should not have money. There was really not a negotiation about it. It just sort of fell on it like we were doing all these wrong things when a new treasurer came into town and was trying to really organize things. So from being a little family thing that Ruth would shop at Walmart and go here and there and get the best buys, she took care of the library like her home in a way, second home. And I just said, we are being institutionalized. We are being brought up to the speed with the town. And so we had to go through a lot of changes, which caused a fair amount of heartbreak on some people's part, where they, where things were taken personally. And so we have worked to be part of the town. I have seen my role as chair of the trustees as trying to be a communication agent, and I think things have improved incredibly over the last while. And I see them only more fully improving because we came about a year ago saying we wish there'd be someone who'd be over the facilities of the town, because we were trying to run without any expertise our own facility, and now that's come to be. And I must say, I think we were the first people who talked about that. Anyway, I think that's a really good improvement. The fact that Dave is going to be overseeing all the technology, we just feel like we're being brought into the loop in a much more complete way. That's the library in general. The trustees ourselves, we see ourselves as advisory to the librarian. That we can have because we're a town committee, I come here and I talk to you from the trustees. But we are really seeing ourselves now as no longer the agents. We don't have a treasurer because the town has a treasurer. And Ruth works directly with the town. We advise her on the budget. We would do more with programming if we had a better facility, so we really don't do much on that part. So I hope that explains some of what has been perceived as kicking and screaming, because it was really lack of communication. We didn't always know what was desired of us. And we'll try to be a good town department and a good town committee. And the other thing I want to bring up is that I had a conversation with Sean Sanborn about a month ago. We're trying to write grants. This is sort of, I'm taking the friend, I also wear a Friends of the Library hat in terms of fundraising, trying to work toward a new library. We have a valuable book in our collection that's been taken out and not returned. I had to go and borrow books through interlibrary loan because one of my neighbors has that book and has not returned it. And so Sean left a note at this person's house, and there's been no response. The library is a town department, and the materials budget is paid for by taxpayers. We have patrons with hundreds of dollars worth of books that have not been returned, and therefore they are missing from our collection. We've tried to talk to the sheriff, we at one point talked to the constable, whether there is any recourse that we have, because there's a process that the staff goes through of sending letters, making phone calls. And if people ignore them totally, we don't have any enforcement ability. And I'm certainly not going to go and knock on that man's door who has the grant writing book and say, excuse me, can I have my book back? So I think this is a municipal issue that really needs to be looked at seriously. These are resources that have been paid for by taxes, and we would like any help that we can get in having some kind of muscle behind our procedures to try to get them back.
Duly noted.
Thank you. Any questions?
Well, but just let me, I think, because this has been many, many years at the library, and I think at one point in time, you're absolutely right, the trustees were really the owners, if you will, even though it was somewhat funded by the taxpayers. But, each one of those steps, I think, has come on the heels of accountability, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
When you have employees, then it now becomes, well, if they're employees, even though they're part-time now, they become part of the town employee structure. So I can remember when we kind of converted and said, okay, the employees will now be paid out of the towns, because we had to worry about FICA and all of that kind of stuff. So it's interesting, because you try to put 20 some odd years of this thing into 15 minutes of, hey, this is where we come. But I think in most cases it's been because of structural needs and whatnot that, and I think you're absolutely right, unless that's laid out and explained and whatnot, it becomes of, hey, this is more of a control grab and all of that. And I don't think there's anybody that wants to determine what the trustees do from a programming or resources, or this is what the needs are of the library, right? Mm-hmm. And how they get structured and the recommendations, and because I think you're right, you become like a board over the librarian that kind of steers the library in a certain direction. You can steer it in one direction or the other. So I think that the Board of Trustees have transitioned very well over the years, okay, and some of it might have come kicking and screaming, but I think the transition has gone very well, and I think you're in another, you're kind of on the edge of now transitioning a bit more where, the town, and I think from our perspective, from a financial perspective, there are some things that we see necessary to bring everything under, like the technology and the Dave and whatnot, because that really is the opportunity for us to control cost within the municipality without everybody off doing their own thing.
Sure,
So,
absolutely.
I think a good part of the library can be seen as sort of it's growing, and there are growing pains with that, like a child. At times they go kicking and screaming as well until, they get a little older and, things are, explained to them. The lines of communication, I think, that you touched on is a very important aspect of that, and disappointments along the way, if you can liken it to the growing child too, when the goldfish passes away or something like that. That's part of life, and I think that's part of growing and expanding and developing, and that much the same way with the library. I think that you're going to have some growing pains as well when the new library comes into fruition. I think that there's going to be some changes there, albeit probably pretty good ones, but and I don't see where this board has looked down on the library or anything, or deliberately said, geez, you're not a part of the community,
No.
But you do have a point well taken that you're a little bit removed from the
Right.
central activity of the town, and sometimes...
And a lot of things get communicated informally. And if they're not put into a formal kind of communication, there have been times when we've missed out on them and then felt as though we were being called to account for something that we didn't know about. And I really see that changing.
Yeah, we're hoping to address that in part through a unified email system that the whole town operates on, so that we can get messages out and communicate better. And I know that the town administrator has been tasked by the board with holding the department head meetings, which, has taken place because we received the reports on those. So that's just another element of, that communications strategy that we're trying to put forth.
And here's where the trustees really step back and the librarian initiates, because she's the person who's the department head. And I think that's what the real change in power relationship that's happened between the librarian and the selectmen and the trustees.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, at one time, the trustees were really they were the conduit that was looking for budget and all those kind of things, and it rightfully so should get down to the librarian as really the quote-unquote owner of the library. That's who we pay to manage the library.
And we support and advise her.
Yep, that's right, absolutely.
I certainly don't view it as a power issue, more of a collaborative effort to see that things work smoothly within the town.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've really done a lot of that in the past years, looking at all of the town departments and trying to bring everybody in together more to work collaboratively, because doing that is what ultimately is in the best interest of the townspeople. It provides a better level of service to the citizens. And I think it's great that when you get all of the departments talking to each other, because then you can brainstorm, hey, we're doing this, you're doing that, and I think you look at things in a different light. But I think it is good that all of the departments town-wide, we're the town of Waterboro, we're not just individual departments.
Right.
On an aside, how was your teaching experience in Georgia?
We had to cancel class Friday night and Saturday with black ice.
In
It was
Georgia?
colder in Atlanta than it was here. And they had snow, whiteout conditions. It was just crazy.
So you weren't homesick at all down there then, huh?
I wasn't homesick at all. In fact, I got to drive. There were 3 of us faculty there, and I got to do all the driving. You're from Maine, you're going to drive.
All right, thank you, Bridget.
Okay.
All right, economic development. I'm not sure which Binet brother talks at what meeting. I guess.
Okay. First, I want to thank you guys for letting me come this week as opposed to our water
You
troubles.
do have less time now than you would have had last week. We're
Oh,
just gonna
that's not
change
good
a little
then. So we'll have to
So
reschedule that.
you have, let's see, about a third of the time that Tom had.
Oh, well, that's a lot of time now. Hey, when I saw that you were
He had
going first on
37
the
minutes,
agenda,
I
I
kept
said,
track.
He's
here
already
we go, I'm going to have about 4 minutes of time there after
He's
Tom.
already wasted a minute and a half.
Well, I will say this, that I saw Tom's, I taped last week's meeting and Tom spoke, and I felt like, Tom, that you and I wrote the same things, that we were in the same office writing our reports, and we weren't. So I really wanted to come last week after watching that, but then you spoke again tonight, and you said a lot of the things that, I want to reiterate and make sure that everyone understands. But I'll get to that. First, I want to do just a quick review of what the Economic Development Committee accomplished in 2009. I know that it's a new committee, so a lot of people are wondering, well, what are we doing? What have we done? In 2009, we completed the site plan review changes and submitted them to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen then passed it on to the Planning Board, and then it came back to the Board of Selectmen and they passed it. And, that was a lot of work that a chosen few on the Economic Development Committee worked on to complete that, and then presented it to the committee, and then they passed it forward. Also, one of our big things that we did last year is we met with all the presidents of the local banks. That is very difficult to do, to get the presidents to come out and speak to us. So we got them all in the same canoe and had one meeting, which was pretty good. You know, one of the things that's out there in some of the online chat rooms in the town is kind of a joke about the signs, the welcome signs, that we spent a lot of time working on signs, and to be honest with you, it's still in the process. You all received a packet last week of the signs, and I want to speak for the designer of the signs. She wants to make sure that we all understand that this is simply just a sketch, that really is up to the Board of Selectmen to decide if we need to have signs around the town. So you all received those packets of different designs that included colors. But really the important part is to move forward with a design. And I think that you are all in agreement on the sign that we want to use. Now the next part is, once we agree on that design, we have to come to a conclusion on the background color, and then we'll get cost out. And then where's that money coming from? And we'll get to all that. Let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's agree that signs are needed. Why do I think, and the committee thinks, that signs are needed? Well, a perfect example is Tuesday night. The How and How Tech on Discovery Channel was on. And about 3/4 of the way into the hour, the foreman for How and How Tech came into the brothers' office and said, guys, we need to expand. These 2 garages are too small. So, like TV is, they were all excited. They just hopped in the truck and they went out and looked for a place, and they found it. And they found it in 2 minutes. It didn't take long. But the problem is, when they found it on the show, I think that the building was in Rumford. Because the show, they're driving in their truck, driving down the street, and they pass a sign that says Rumford, and 10 seconds later, they're in front of their building in Waterboro. Why did that happen? The reason why it happened is because we don't have a good sign to show. That's why it happened.
Either that or it's a terrible editor.
It's
edited in the show.
I don't think that that's the reason.
I believe there was actually a conversation that they could not find an acceptable sign in Waterboro.
Yeah. So,
Broadcast.
you
So
know,
they'd broadcast one in Rumford?
From
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
so-
Perfect sense.
you know,
From
so,
California, right?
Yes.
anyways, we have, a sign, and there's a different sign that was brought out here. And I'm going to show it so that some of the people at home can see it. The designer just was playing around, and she incorporated the blue and the green in the sign. And really, I think that it looks pretty nice. So I would say that this sign issue is now in your court, and we have to decide if we're going to do a sign. I think that it's a no-brainer at this point. So enough about the signs tonight. The final thing that we have been working on, or worked on in 2009, was the more attractive town environment, and that there was committee members working with the code enforcement office to do that. If they felt like something needed to be cleaned up in town, they notified the code enforcement so that the office could go and take care of that. The 2010 goals that we just completed in our last meeting, the first one, communication amongst all committees, including the Board of Selectmen. We feel like in order for our development of a town to continue, that all the committees all of them have to be working simultaneously in the same direction. They can't be a pull and a tug from committees. We all have to be on the same page and work towards the same goals. Second, marketing the town of Waterboro in correlation with the EDC. In order to have businesses be looking to come to our town, we need to market our town. We need to have marketing materials. We need to be on the forefront of the technology to do that. Number 3, information packets for prospective businesses coming into town. If we have a business that comes into our town right now and they go to see Tom, Tom really doesn't have much to give them. In fact, Tom showed us, I asked Tom to bring something that he would give the business in our town of information we have for our town for a business coming in, and he brought a 1980 brochure. That's, I don't even need to talk about this. That's a problem. I was 6 years old. I was just, nothing wrong with the committee. It's time for a new brochure. Not just a brochure, but other things that he can give them to give them information about some of the things in our town that are really important. Number 4, property inventory, including zoning for potential businesses. When those businesses come to town, they may not have a site that they know of in town, but Tom should know what they are, what kind of business they are, what they'll need, size of the piece of property, if it's just a property, that size, and what is the zoning, or if they want a building that's existing, what are the buildings that can fit that business? He needs that property inventory at his fingertips. And finally, number 5, work with the State Department for Economic Development to help Waterboro sell businesses what it is that makes Waterboro great. And that's coming up for those that are interested. On Thursday, Brian Doyle is coming into the Economic Development Committee meeting at 4 o'clock right here in this room. And he's going to be helping us do what we need to do to make Waterboro a better place. So that's something that, if you're interested, you want to come see. You know, Tom was talking about the comprehensive plan, and the Economic Development Committee is really, I think, one of the places where it all really started to fester, that we needed to do some changes. Not that the Economic Development Committee wanted to do those changes, but that it needed to be done and a committee needed to be put together. It is imperative that we get this ball rolling and understand that much of what we all want for the community is based on a well-constructed plan. The previous committee did the best they could with what they had in 2003. But now we know way more about the economics of our local area and everything abroad. We know so much more. There's so many peaks and valleys that we've seen in the last 7 years that we can develop that comprehensive plan around. Experience is invaluable. Some of the key points that I think that we should be thinking about when we develop the comprehensive plan. I believe, if I'm not correct, please, interrupt me, but the road review has put in their budget for a traffic counter. Traffic flow is a key point when designing a comprehensive plan. As years have passed by, Route 5 and 202 have increased in traffic flow considerably. A traffic counter will enable us to isolate where we are to put all our efforts and where the town should spend money to improve the roads. Next, comprehensive plan, what does it give us? Well, grants. Based on a completed comprehensive plan, grants of large magnitude become available to apply for. The town could apply for such grants as a revolving account to help businesses with capital improvements and/or new business loans at a low interest rate. There are towns in this state which have used such grants in their towns to help small businesses get off their feet and get started. We could apply for such an opportunity. There are many other grants available as well. This is just one example of the impact the comprehensive plan would have on our community. I wanted to address one of the things that came up while Tom was talking about the comprehensive plan. In the Maine Townsman, dated October 2009, comprehensive plans, not a regulatory document. According to the Maine Law Court, A comprehensive plan is visionary, not regulatory. A comprehensive plan provides goals and objectives and an implementation strategy for achieving them. What this means is this. Nestle Waters of North America, we know them as Poland Spring, they tried to do something in the town of Freiburg. And there were a few chosen people in the town of Freiburg that didn't want that kind of big business in their town. And they said that, according to the comprehensive plan, that Nestle Water Company was too big to be in their town. And they got what originally was allowed to go through the planning board, they got it repealed and stopped them from going into Freiburg. Well, Nestle Water Company went to the law court and argued that the lower court erred in imposing an extra requirement on the comprehensive plan, and the High Court agreed. And I quote, the High Court said, the comprehensive plan is just that, a plan, and ordinances adopted pursuant to the plan are its regulatory teeth. Okay? So it is a vision. We do not do everything according to what the comprehensive plan says. It is just a vision for the future of our town. Some other things that we need to address when we think about the comprehensive plan. Codes and zones. How should our town look and where should we have our center of town? It is very difficult to have multiple centers within a town. Should we look at changing the codes? Now that scares some people when we change codes. And a lot of people don't want change because it's scary. They don't know what's going to happen due to the change in codes. We can keep a small town look and still appeal to small to mid-sized businesses by changing the codes to apply. The questions we need to ask ourselves while constructing a comprehensive plan is, what makes a traditional New England town? See, there's a lot of towns in the South right now that are trying to make their town look like ours. I know that some people find that hard to believe, but they're spending an immense amount of money to do so. And there are some codes that they're implementing that work for small business, that keep that small village town look. Some of what Tom is talking about, on Route 5 especially, from Hannaford to the lake. If we do not make sure that we keep that look the way it is, businesses will come in and according to the codes, will change the way that Route 5 looks, unless we make sure that we keep it a small town.
Let me just interrupt you, because I know that you kind of have some prepared and whatnot, but we're talking about the Economic Development Committee here, not the comprehensive plan, so.
Yeah, but.
And I understand that.
But the comprehensive plan,
Yeah.
if written right, is a
Okay,
direct
so
derivative
let
of
me-
economic
And I
development.
agree, and I think there will be people, certainly from the EDC, that will have some input to the comprehensive plan. But if I'm listening to what you're saying tonight, and I don't have a problem with what you're saying, because you're hitting all the right places, but, you know, we really want a report from the EDC, which I think you've given us, okay?
I haven't
And-
finished, but yeah.
Well, now I think you're giving us what you think should be in the comprehensive plan.
Well, some of the key points that should go in.
Okay, yeah, and I don't have a problem with that, Chris. I'm just saying, it was, you know, we're kind of mixing the two together.
See, I don't know that we are. I think that, like I said, if you want economic development in this town to be right, we need to make sure that some of the things that are in the comprehensive plan allow that to happen.
Absolutely, I don't disagree.
So,
And I
if-
don't want to shut you off. All I'm saying is that,
But,
you know, we've gone from an EDC report into a commercial for, let's go do the comprehensive plan.
Well-
And I don't.
no, I don't agree with you there, Dennis, and
Okay.
respectively. I don't agree with that. You know, the EDC committee, you know, if you want us to make an impact in the town and help you make good decisions for economic development, we need to have open communication, and I'm not so sure that that's happening. I'm not so sure that, sometimes I feel like our committee is just spinning our wheels, that, you know, we're not being heard. So I'm here, and I'm trying to make sure that you understand that there's a lot more that that comprehensive plan does to economic development than meets the eye. I
No,
did
and
want to
and
touch on...
And I think you've got, you know, 4 or 5 goals here that you explained that ultimately is really the meat of what the committee is going to go forward and do, okay? I think we all would agree that comprehensive plan, zoning, all of that kind of stuff is going to come into play here.
Yeah, I think that the key to the comprehensive plan is, one of our goals is, number one, our communication amongst all those committees. That all these committees work together with the comprehensive plan committee to get this done and get it done right. And, you know, that's important. So, I wanted to touch on, you know, a couple other things that have to do with the comprehensive plan, but are immediate and impacted our community in this weekend. The fishing derby. The comprehensive plan, if written correctly, the fishing derby is right up the alley of correlating with the comprehensive plan. Just so everybody knows in town what kind of impact the fishing derby did in our town on Sunday. There was $15,000 worth of tickets sold for the fishing derby. $15,000, what does that money do? Well, some of the money goes back to prizes for the people who were fishing. But also, that money helps the inland fishery and wildlife, hooked on fishing, not on drugs. There was over $9,000 in raffle tickets sold for the snowmobile that was out front of Lakeside from the Mountaineer Club. There was over $3,000 in ticket sales for the Auger. Additional revenue estimated for the area businesses was $15,000 to $20,000 just on Sunday for the area businesses that were open to accommodate the fishing derby. Let's not forget about the food pantry collection by the FET. That was a huge success. They collected a ton of food. And let's not forget the Lions Club trailer that was out there. They had a very, very successful day. All in all, there was over $40,000 in revenue to the community in one day. Now, why did I mention this? We must continue to support this event as a community and look to expand into other events that drive our local economy and the tourism. We need to try to look at other ways and avenues to drive visitors to our town and stay here for the day, and of course, spend money. One final issue, and then I will step back. The school and the budget. How does it correlate with economic development? Well, I think it really is a huge, huge impact. In the future, what will scare businesses from coming to our town? The school. The committee realizes that the Board of Selectmen is trying to help in the process of proper development in our town. Our school district's budget increase and impact it has on the town of Waterboro. The burden will, again, go on the backs of the citizens of the town of Waterboro, and through the property taxes increasing, basically, just for their school district budget, 15% to 17%. It's very difficult for the citizens to swallow. We will not receive any new or additional services for that increase to the taxes. And eventually, the citizens and the Board of Selectmen have to say no to that school budget. They have to learn how to manage their budget for what they got. We cannot continue to give the money good after bad to them. And it does impact economic development because businesses will not come to this town. Small businesses will not come to this town. When people go to buy houses in this town, the first thing they ask is, how's the school system? Well, the budget keeps going up every year. And I know that they had a cutback from the state. We all know that. But that means that you just have to make ends meet with what you have. You don't go back to the backs of the taxpayers and ask them to give more money, especially in this time. I asked a couple private citizens, what could the school system do to save money? And here are some of the responses. The bus system, they need to put that out to bid to private companies for the bus services. We would save an immense amount of money for the school district if they did that. As some of you may know and may not know, I was a school teacher for 5 years in the Bonnie Eagle School District. One of the things we did over there to save money is consolidated schools. One school in the district that I believe needs to be shut down and split students amongst the other schools is the Shapley School, where it's costing over $1 million to run that school, and there's 105 students. They can split those students to Alfred and some to Limerick. Also, the principals and vice principals in the elementary school system. In some of these schools, they're small enough where they don't need a vice principal. They can have a head teacher who gets stipend to do the duties of the vice principal, which is basically just reprimanding some of the kids for behavior. I know this. I was in a school for many years. A principal basically handles budget and scheduling. They don't need vice principals at $60,000. They can get rid of them. When you have some schools, like we have in our district, we can have one principal for 2 schools with head teachers in each of the schools. Usually the head teachers get stipend at $10,000 for the year for that. That would save $120,000, just 2 schools being consolidated. One other thing that was mentioned to me was the purchase of 2 new vans and a pickup with a sander at this time that they thought it was not necessary to do. Finally, to end this, I encourage the Board of Selectmen to look at the signs and let's get them up. It is vital that we do. The second series of shows will be coming up for How and How on Discovery Channel, and we don't have a lot of time. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
I'd like to respond to one of your comments. There was I think it was Dave, is it Williams on the Finance Committee? We had a discussion during one of our meetings concerning the budget, and the talk of the vans and so forth came up. And I made a specific point of telling David that I would find the answer to that. Now, as you know, we've been meeting with the 6 towns, selectmen from the 6 towns of the R.S.U. 57 have been meeting over in Alfred. And those in attendance included the finance director for the school system as well as the superintendent of schools. So I had occasion to talk to Mr. Sherbin directly, and I asked him about this and told him that it was a concern of people in the community. The response that he had on that was the vehicles weren't purchased right now. The purchase and sales agreement was actually done last year. Delivery wasn't taken until this year. The vans were purchased because the other vans that they had in excess of 200,000 miles on both of those vans, and the repair costs were escalating on those. It was far cheaper to transport some students to different events in the van than it was to contract out the 66-passenger bus to do the same thing. It was a cost-effective maneuver there. As to the truck and the sander, I approached that question with them as well because they go out to bid for their plowing and sanding. The response on that was the truck was needed for the smaller jobs where they didn't want to call the contractor back out at an additional expense for sanding, where they could take and do it for the whole district. Small jobs, they'd send that truck around, plus the plowing was done for cleanups and stuff like that these big trucks, as part of the bid process, weren't handling or couldn't handle. So there was a cost savings effect there that they were going to be doing some of the small jobs and take that away from the bid process so they'd be saving money. There was a third component to that, was one of the vehicles was being taken home by one of the people that was in charge of the maintenance and so forth there. And he said that that was because that person was on call 24/7 for anything that might go wrong in the school system, whether it be a boiler or lights or electrical problem, anything. He was expected to respond to the school for that, and that was the response he gave.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Gordon, looking into that. My only concern about the sander is the cost of money versus time recoup. The cost of the initial investment of the vehicle versus having a company come over that you've already have a contract with, and it costs a little more for them to come out for an additional sanding. How long does it take to recoup the cost of buying that vehicle? And again, we're
Well,
getting...
that's a question that I can't answer, number
Right.
one. And
No, it's
I would probably
rhetorical. It's
suggest that-
rhetorical, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing,
Contact the school
yeah,
board.
I don't think this, see, the problem I have with this is, they know that the tax dollars are gonna keep coming in. Do you know that that states cannot go bankrupt? You can't bankrupt a state, do you know why? Because when you collect tax dollars, it's illegal, it can't be done. The same with the school district. They know tax dollars is coming in. They just know they can spend all the money, and then next year, it's a pot of gold, it comes in again. And it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And, you know, I know you guys can't, and I've had this conversation with you, you can't go to them and say no. Yeah, I know you can't. But at some point, our citizens need to stand up and say, enough is enough. Hey, if we were sending out road scholars out of that school district, I would send $1 million to them every year. Because road scholars, it's a trickle-down effect. If we're having smart kids that go to college and they come back to our town, they're running businesses, it's a really nice cycle. But that's not what's happening there. And it's frustrating.
Here's where you are. There's 4,000 voters in this community. 158 of them voted.
I agree with you, Dennis.
Okay, so therein lies the issue. Okay.
There's the rub, right?
So,
That's, absolutely, and that's why I'm speaking, to open up some of the eyes out there that are watching, saying, people, we need to do something, or that elephant is going to suck us dry. They will. They're just going to come back next year with more money. It's just the way it is.
All right, now that we've covered the schools,
All which have to do with economic development, Dennis.
any other comments?
Now I'll address a comment that I had, that part of this is probably contingent upon having an excellent GIS mapping system for the town. Unfortunately, those types of technological enterprises cost some money. And when we're faced with an exorbitant amount in monies that we have to come up with for the school because the state wanted to transfer that burden to the local people, then, you know, it just makes it extremely difficult to say that that's a priority item, even though it has the potential of expanding economic development.
I'll make this hit home real quick. The school district, the increase in their budget that they're proposing, what will it do to your taxes? If you have a $2,000 property tax bill, your property taxes are going up $200 for the year, just on the school budget increase. That's not the county increase, that's not the town increase, but guys, you guys can't even increase anything.
Oh, they're going to go up more than 2.
That's just if you go at 10%.
Oh, no. They're going to go up over that.
That's you're including county and all that?
No, the
just
school
Well, then
budget,
that's even scarier.
the school budget right now funded flat is a 13.7% increase to the town of Waterboro.
Okay, so what does that, and what does that do to our town now? That we're not getting any more services for that increase in taxes, none. And we're not, like I said, if they are sending out road scholars over there, I really don't have a problem with it. Thank you.
You graduated from over there. No, never
I
mind.
did graduate over there, and then I went to college. Then I found out I didn't know anything.
All right. Thank you, Chris. As usual, very colorful. All right, let's move on to new business. we have a committee appointment. We are looking to appoint a Eco-Maine alternative, and that's really for Willis Lott is our representative to Eco-Maine, and he has requested that we have an alternate for those occasions where he might not be able to make a meeting. So we did advertise this. I think we've got one request to go on the committee, so what is your pleasure? Here, folks.
My pleasure is to recommend that, do we have to form a motion now, or does
Yeah.
that come later? Okay, I would form a motion that we appoint David Woodsum, whose application we received, to be the Eco-Maine representative for the town of Waterboro. I think
Second that.
This is the alternate representative.
The alternate, okay. I will amend my motion to include the word alternate.
And you second that? Ms.
Yep.
Cindy? Any discussion? I think it'll be I think Dave is a natural person to kind of step up. He chairs the committee. It'll also be an education for him because it'll open up a whole different view of waste, I'm sure. Anyway, all those in favor? Opposed? We should have had much, much more on this agenda where there's only 3 of us tonight. We could have really rolled. All right, scheduled committee reports. I think in your packet, or in the packet was a list of committees that have reported out. We now have had a number of them. I will send you, for the one that didn't report out, I have a drafted letter. I've written it twice because I'm trying to be nice, and I'll send that to the board, if not tonight, tomorrow, so that you can take a perusal of that, and then we'll send that off. But we have, and I think at the time when we scheduled this, we started to tee up the different department heads as well on a monthly basis, and I think next week is the fire department? Oh, next week is Clint, all right. So Clint is in next week as the department head, which I think we said every 4th week we would do a committee report, a department report. So, as you can see, we have not scheduled the R.S.U. 57 directors, and they are unavailable, I guess, just those 3 dates?
Those 3 weeks, yeah.
Or they are available?
They
or
are
they won't?
unavailable those 3 weeks.
Okay. Parks and Rec, the road commissioner, librarian, planner, sheriff, those really become, the fire department's in here too, right? Those become really the departments that I think we bring in on a monthly basis. And maybe we do 2 of them in a month. We'll see how next week goes with Clint. But we need to sprinkle the rest of these in. The Old Home Days Committee, Jerry, and I don't know if what we get from the assessor on a weekly or on a monthly basis is sufficient for what you guys want to do. Same as code office. In fact, I think Pam and I talked, maybe we had scheduled both Jerry and Patty on the last Tuesday of next month, which they're due back in to talk to us by the 1st of April anyway, so I guess that would be my proposal, is that we schedule them for March 24th, right, or 23rd. Treasurer, tax collector, town clerk, motor vehicle agent, really, the weekly, the reports that we get from them, I think is sufficient, although if...
Well, the only one we've been getting is motor vehicle. Since council meeting stopped, the rest of them have
Well,
stopped.
maybe, and I'm not sure that any one of them want to stand up and talk about
No.
what's going on, right? So maybe we just ask them to submit a monthly report.
Yeah, I think it would be, when you look at some of these committees, I think we've gotten away from just committees and there's, departments.
Yep.
And maybe if we're doing committee reports, we take out department reports,
Yep.
and maybe we go back to having our department heads write up a monthly, I want to say newsletter, but it's not, a monthly report, and we compile all that, put it all together at the end of the month and post it online. And then if we have any questions about it, we can ask them to come in, but it's informative to the citizens. It's there, it's available, but we're not overburdening meeting times trying to fit this vast collection of committees and departments and whatnot that we have out on this list.
I'm good with that. Kind of put out like an electronic newsletter or whatever the case
Yeah.
may be, right?
And we've got the, you know,
When's
the
your
folks
next-
that sign up.
The next department head?
Wait for Thursday.
So do you want to toss that up with them?
Okay.
I mean, they don't need to write a documentary, right? I mean,
Right, just
it's
a recap, and maybe every month, if this turns out to be successful and it goes well, maybe every month we pick somebody to highlight, a special department to highlight or something, you know, maybe one month it's Parks and Rec because summer camp stuff is getting started and you might have a little extra that month, or maybe towards the end of the year, the exercise.
So if I get
tax
on this list, I'm just going to tick these off because I think the folks that we've already done, we've talked about, right? Transfer station manager really goes down into this report structure. But we got road review committee, transfer station committee, finance committee, planning board, fire department goes down into the reports, EDC, library trustees, the EMA director, and I don't know, Pam, whether it's easier for you to prepare a report or just come in and talk about.
Just tell me what you want.
So I would schedule Pam for a meeting here. ZBA is sporadic at best.
Yep.
Animal control officer really should put in a report. Friends, I would think we'd want in here. Eco Maine representative, really we could tie together with the transfer station committee. Cable DV committee, I think, is a committee of one, right?
That's Dick Bateman, that's not you.
Right.
That's not you.
Land trust should come in, I would think, right?
Land trust isn't even a town committee.
Well, that's true. Take them off. Cemetery committee is seasonal. Saco River Community Television is David.
Yes, literally.
Historical Society, Taylor House, Lake Arrowhead, Ospey Lake, those are really seasonable, right? Taylor House committee meeting on a regular basis now?
Not, they only meet in warm weather because of...
Right.
Would they be in like historical society or do we?
Well, even, I mean, the Historical Society, I think that's, you know, just like the Land Trust, it's not a town committee. Maybe invite them if they want to on a monthly basis to submit something like the department heads are, but
I was going to say Taylor House is the same way.
Yeah.
Don't
None
they
of them
control,
are
doesn't the
appointed.
historical society control the Taylor House?
No,
Taylor House Committee does.
there's a separate Taylor House committee.
But they're not appointed by us, so...
Right. So you're right, let's put those into a report. I would think that, and it could be just once, we invite Lake Arrowhead community in and we invite the Lake Association in. They're not town committees, but they're committees that I think we could give them.
Maybe do it like in the late spring or
Late spring or
something.
whatnot as they start to pick up again. And I think the rest of them, we just put on a rotation. We've already gone through road review, transfer station, finance committee we really haven't done yet, but I would say that by the time we get back through them,
Well, they had
Right,
a scheduled
right,
night, they
right.
just didn't have anything
Right.
to really say.
so, I would add, that would come in and report. Want to bring Old Home Days Committee in? So, Old Home Days Committee, Friends,
Friends,
Eco Maine will add with Transfer Station Committee,
yep.
do the two of them together.
And that Fairly will take care of it.
Right, and then we'll just set up a special night to bring in the Lake Association. So if you take those, Pam, those that we just talked about, starting after Library Board of Trustees, we're going to get Old Home Days, the Friends,
R.S.U. when they're available.
right,
Where they're
the Board of Directors when they're available, and then just roll them through a schedule. Okay?
Now,
So
what about, now I know you talked about monthly reports from department heads, but what about these girls out front, your treasurer, your tax
Yeah, I
collector,
think
your
those-
town
I think
clerk, they're
that-
not
that-
department heads.
Right, but
So-
that should come, and that's part of what Nancy needs to kind of, I mean, ultimately, that report would be consolidated by her, but it would be input by each one of them,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So I would think that that would be part of it. She's going to have to discuss that with them and say, okay, this is, because she's getting the motor vehicle one now, right? We're
Yeah,
just not-
it's automatically.
And we get,
monthly.
and we get the
And you get
weekly
the one from the
treasurer,
tax rate.
report anyway, so maybe she gets that consolidated and plugs that into it. All right? That satisfy everybody's needs here? All right. Discuss line extensions and amount of equipment to upgrade A/V equipment. Not quite sure what that is.
Audio visual.
That's David,
Is
isn't
that
it?
David?
Well, it's a request that came down from Tony Vigil, they've got to know by next week, bottom line,
They got to know what?
by next week, I guess.
Okay, so this is the committee that he's talking about.
Yeah. From what, Dick Bateman came in last week, and from what he told me, he sent a couple requests to David and hasn't heard back, so
We got a
They've
request in from,
got to have a figure for the
I'll
franchise.
send them the same one from last year, because they just ignored that one.
Well, they don't have a franchise, they don't have a franchise agreement. So they're looking for new numbers, because the price of everything's gone up, so, but they have to have a firm number by, I think it's the 25th.
So David, if you can David, get together and just between, and whether you send it out, or it's under Nancy's signature or whatever the case may be, just put it up to Tony.
And the other part of that was, are there any roads that the town would like to see extended?
So the committee would push for Time Warner.
To write in a
extend.
new agreement to extend onto new roads. Now, I guess the criteria still remains, there has to be a minimum of 20 homes on the road. So even most of our new subdivisions don't have that many, so.
Do we have a pretty good feel for, do we have in here anywhere a map that shows everything that Time Warner covers?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. And Dick Bateman said that he did a drive around several, probably 10 years ago, but he really hasn't had the opportunity to do it again with this time of year and weather conditions, so I don't know.
Well, without having something that would suggest, hey, let's go do this road, I think we drove the issue on Roberts Ridge and Daring Ridge and Chadman, was it?
Yep.
I mean, there were a bunch that we drove the last time that, I say the last time, many years ago,
15 years
when we
ago.
went to drive this. And those were all extended. I'm not sure that they ever had the amount of subscriptions per population that they were looking for, but. Okay. I guess I would say we wouldn't have any recommendation at this time.
Okay.
So Dave, I think if between the audio, the equipment stuff, just between you and Nancy's, make sure that it gets documented, we send it up and.
Put that in this week.
Okay. Discuss vote to sign agreement with the Animal Emergency Clinic. All right, what changed from last year, other than the prices?
We've never had an agreement with them before.
We haven't?
This is new.
We just had, where if we brought them to the
The shelter.
shelter, the shelter took care of it. There was never any specific, we kind of
The
got
animal
whatever the
control
going rate
officer did look
was.
it over and thought it was a good idea, he thinks we'll save money, so,
Who does?
the animal
Wait.
control officer.
We do take animals in there for emergencies, but now with the state, changing the state law.
I would suggest that we have that vetted by the town attorney
Yeah.
for any potential pitfalls or
Is
liabilities.
this, so this agreement, I misunderstood. I thought this was just with the Kennybug shelter that we've been dealing with.
It's the emergency clinic in Warren Avenue.
This is Downey's Veterinary Emergency Clinic. Or no, okay.
My only question would be, I think that it's a great idea to have a contract that lays out specific costs, because it does look like there's some cost savings to the municipality here. What, did Animal Emergency Clinic just solicit us? Are there other emergency clinics that we could potentially explore? The one on 111 isn't a 24-hour?
No, and the one that was on, Lyman is no longer 24. The only one left is this one in Portland.
What's the one in Hollis? That's still going?
Your Hollis Animal Clinic?
Got one on the Hill Road in London too.
Well, that's the one that's out on 111.
No, it's right, no, I serve papers, it's right on, the one that's on 111's up by the,
Oh, okay, so
Dunkin'
where's the
Donuts.
one in the Hill Road?
It's
Right
as you turn off of
as you
111.
turn off 111, it's
Okay, yeah,
like
I'm sorry, yeah.
200 yards in.
I'm thinking that that's 111, but
The one on 111 is.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, that's Dr. Tim's on 111. I just wonder if there's something more local other than Portland.
We've been using them.
Yeah.
Well, I think the agreement should be,
And that's if it's after hours.
Yeah.
That's,
because I mean, when this was on there, in fact, I looked at it in a packet and I jumped because I said, well, this is just the annual agreement with the animal shelter, but, so we need to, I think you're right, this needs to be vetted by
No pun intended, huh?
the town council
Now that you
for the
mention
vet
it, yeah.
agreement. It was good, though. I didn't catch that right away.
I didn't.
So
I
let's,
said it,
I
it
guess
wasn't
let's
my
tee it up with Natalie, Ken, or whomever, right? We shouldn't be signing anything
Would
that
it
they
be,
don't.
would it be prudent to check with those local entities and see whether or not they provide 24-hour service for a municipality? And if so, what their fees might be in relationship to this?
Wade's been, ones that we have used in the past have said they will no longer do 24 hours. That's why we've been going to Portland.
Long way to go to Warren Avenue.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
I don't think it would hurt us to make a couple of calls. I mean, I gotta be out and about tomorrow, I can stop in and,
poke about it, I guess.
yeah, I'll ask Shirley.
Okay, no old business. Other business, warrants and bills for payroll.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor? Pending decisions, a committee involvement thing remains on there. Training
We're
proposals.
skipping minutes.
Excuse me? I'm
We're
sorry, yeah.
skipping minutes.
Yeah, because I figure that's all in one. Why don't we just make that one line item from now on? Discuss vote to sign minutes of 2/9.
So moved.
second,
All those in favor? All right. Pending decisions,
2 and 3 possibly will be taken care of next week.
Okay.
As soon as we hear back from
and we,
Bureau of Labor.
in follow-up to the meeting that we had the other night, we probably ought to determine what we're going to do with transfer station recommendation. I think we still need to meet with, out of that discussion, and I think Clint was going to arrange something with Kevin. You know if he did that?
I can talk to them.
So we'll leave that on there for now. And a comprehensive plan, and I think probably need to pull at least that onto next week's agenda, but we'll get there. Week's action list. I don't have anything other than Pam's going to run through those committees, and I guess, Nancy, you're going to go over with the department heads at your staff meeting.
You want them to do a recap once a month?
Yeah, I think just a short brief, with the emphasis on brief. And I say that only for Mike. Mike and Tom.
Do we need a motion on the agreement to sign with the animal emergency
Oh,
clinic?
they're gonna send it up to the lawyer.
No, but I mean, do we need
Table.
do we need a motion to table that because it's on here to?
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
I would
Go
make
back
a
to-
motion that we table that pending a review of the town attorney and potential outsourcing information.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Okay. Where were we? Discussion of agenda items.
For next week,
Yep,
Next week's a workshop.
yep.
so we don't have an agenda.
Right, well,
So we should put onto that worksheet discussion of comprehensive plan
yep,
actions, right?
yep. And has the transfer station committee decided what potential paper bag route?
No.
'Cause that could be another workshop.
Yeah, I think we're a month or
Discussion.
so away from that.
Okay.
In fact, they have set up some forums that they're trying to get people involved in to discuss those issues. I think those are scheduled for the first Saturday in March and the second Monday in March or something of that nature. So probably by the end of next month, I think they'll be close. We probably could reschedule the executive session that we pushed off from tonight.
Yep. We could do that at 6 if we're just having a workshop.
Yep. Works for me. Works better for me.
Yeah.
On some agenda, whether it be next week's, I guess we don't normally have an agenda then, but in the following week, if we could review and discuss what appears to be the unlawful usurpation of municipal property with respect to map 41, lot 13. That seems to be
Well, how about
fenced
we
inappropriately.
at least do this? Do we have history on what's going on there?
Like I said, the only thing that we ever have had is, I don't know how many years ago it was. It was, the selectmen looked into having it surveyed and contacted Sebago Technics. Do you remember, Pam, was it $3,000 or $5,000 or something? Excuse me, to survey that piece of
I
property?
don't have a problem with putting it on next week's agenda. I mean, it's just a one little blip that we can at least determine, but what I would like to see is, let's search through everything that we've got and see if we've ever raised the issue before.
Yeah, it was only that one time.
So wouldn't that be better then to do it not next week, but the week after, so they have some time to
That's
go
fine.
and look at these?
Yeah, that's fine,
Yeah.
as long as it
Okay.
at some point. What I'm referring to, Mr. Mobile, is a piece of property that shows that the town of Waterboro owns by the tax card and the tax map, a portion that would grant the public the right of access to the lake off the Chadburn Ridge Road up by the dam.
At the dam.
That's
Hey,
correct.
all you have to do is call Charlie Brown, he must have that, he's the one who surveyed it.
I talked to
Because I
Charlie.
went there
He didn't do
last
it.
fall and the pins are out, the pins are gone.
Well,
Because
let's
Charlie
just-
Brown is the one who put them in.
Let's look at, I mean, we've replaced that dam
'Cause
twice.
back
that I
in
know of.
19
We had to have it done
And
now.
Sebago Techniques did it both times. so I would gotta
1980,
believe
he
it's
did it,
something
I
else.
mean 1985. He did that.
All right, so let's pull what we can together, and we'll bring it back into
I'll give Charlie a call again, but he didn't remember doing it.
Tammy Jo,
Charlie Brown did it himself.
do we need to,
Yes.
so we ought to discuss that next
Yeah.
week?
Yeah.
Then That's plenty of time?
Yeah,
And-
they're gonna wordsmith it up a little bit, and I would say no later than next week.
So we'll just schedule another, we'll call it a workshop to discuss legislative.
We'll need a vote on if we're
Yeah.
gonna sign it or not.
If we're there, we can always add it to the
Yeah.
agenda after the workshop. The other thing would be the R.S.U.
Piece. And the
Letter.
one that Nancy sent us out today.
Right.
One of the things that did get discussed that I should have brought up earlier was, along with that letter, potentially doing a cover letter from each individual municipality, kind of highlighting the individual impact to the municipality.
Yep.
And including that cover sheet as a correspondence to the governor as well.
Yep. So why don't we set aside, we'll do the workshop on the comprehensive plan, and then we'll do another workshop that deals with legislative letters or communications or those kind of things. And if we have to come out of that and put something on the agenda to vote, then we'll do that. Which will also include the discussion of the recommendation that you had, as well as the R.S.U. 57, because it's all related. I mean, ultimately, I think that one's going to the directors, but it's all part and parcel. All right. Okay, moving on. Items needing signature, warrants and bills of payroll, minutes of 2/9. We're not going to sign the agreement with the animal clinic. We don't have the appointment papers for David. Those will be next week, I would presume.
They're in there to be signed.
Oh, they are, okay. So those will need to be signed. Reminders, WAB meeting tomorrow morning, 7:30 at the Town Hall. Finance Committee meeting tomorrow night at 6:30 in the Town Hall. EDC here at 4 p.m. and you have guests coming from the Maine Economic Development Commission, right?
Yep, and the Department of Tourism.
And the Department of Tourism. ZBA site walks Thursday. Were they at 5:30 or were they?
The sidewalk is at 4, at 5:30, they're meeting.
Oh, they're meeting.
So EDC is going to have to hurry up, because the ZBA is meeting at 5:30.
Well, that's kind of,
Well, they don't, they can meet, I mean, they'll have to sort out where
They have to be taken. ZBA has to.
are they gonna make a decision?
I believe so.
Yeah, this is a
This is a
continuation.
continuation of the previous meeting.
I hate to hurry state officials out.
Let's just
I
move
was going to say,
Yep.
can you move some?
Well, we're gonna tape our meeting too, because we might get some great information out of it, so have to move it along as best we can.
Smartly.
Why can't we tape it with a standalone recorder?
Good, but I think, certainly you want to be in this forum with the state officials,
Yeah.
but, by the time 5:30 rolls around, they may very well be headed back to Augusta. All right, and then next week, starting at 6 p.m., our meeting here. And John's not here tonight, so somebody else will have to do the duty, but I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just want to hang out for a little longer.
I'll second that.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Thank you, Tammy.